It's clear Miami has beef with Indiana on men's and women's side. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about a little post-game handshake beef between Louisville and Texas. We also got some tea on Duke losing at home to Colorado. Celeste Taylor did the damn thing, but it wasn't quite enough. And then North Carolina, final in-game play. It's giving stressful. It's giving I don't know. It's giving let's talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper, joined by Kenton Gibbs of Locked On ACC, Locked On Wolfpack a little bit. Thanks so much for being here. Once again, we always appreciate you downloading and subscribing to the podcast from anywhere you listen. Got a lot to go over. We told y'all the ACC women's basketball is it, and we were proven right. Let's start with the best part of today. Upset alert. Number 1 seed Indiana goes down thanks to the hands of the Cavinder twins, Pendande, Dwyer, feeling it. Everybody doing what they got to do out of Miami. I mean, 305 just ain't messing with the Hoosiers. I don't know what's going on. The men took down the Hoosiers in their opportunity to get to the Sweet 16. The women did the same thing last night. 70-68. It was a nail-biting victory. I mean, you got to give all credit to Indiana because playing at home is tough. They hit some clutch shots. We almost went into overtime, but Miami said, hold that thought, and kept it pushing.
Spring break in Miami never works out well for people from Indiana. March Madness is not working out with Miami and folks from Indiana. This is tough. This is tough, boy. Both Miami teams being lower seeded and upsetting both Indiana men's and women's basketball. Hoo-wee. Hoo. Boy, I'll tell you what.
I would not want to go to Miami if I was an Indiana student right now.
No.
Nah.
I mean, you know, it was a shocker that got the whole world tweeting. I mean, Mario Cristobal is jumping out the face saying, "Ooh, how about them Canes?" You know, in the words of Mario, that you hits different, brother. It hits different. And with that being said, this was a heck of a game from this team. I mean, you look at what Miami has been through in just this tournament alone. I don't know what it is about Miami when these tournaments come around and all of a sudden they turn into an entirely different team. Last year's ACC tournament, they were a bubble team coming in and going out. They were the ACC runner-ups. This year in the NCAA tournament, they come into this tournament as like a team that you're like, yeah, they're firmly in, but can they really do anything? Can they make any noise? First round, 17-point comeback. Second round, wire-to-wire victory over the number 2 team in the nation. I mean, you know, what more can you ask for out of Miami?
1,000%. And it was thanks to Destiny Harden's put back. Well, it was a layup. Okay, we'll call it a layup. Whatever it was. I think that Destiny definitely had that dog in her. Coach told her just win the whole thing. And more importantly than that, the Cavinder twin, Hailey Cavinder, was lights out, hitting clutch threes when it mattered. Indiana was rattled, but they weren't shaken. They definitely had an opportunity to make this thing go to overtime, put it away. But good on Miami, right? Running some clutch plays, going right at them with 40 seconds left, not allowing for them to even feel like they're going to hold the ball so they get the last shot and not leave enough time in case Indiana did score, which they did, and not be able to come back and score again. North Carolina, I hope you're taking notes. I feel like Miami just has the energy right now. Everything's going their way, but it helps that both programs are doing what needs to be done. At the end of the day, you get punched in the mouth, you fight back. Miami's men's team had a different opportunity in terms of they were leading for most of the way, but Miami girls, they know how to come back from, being in sort of hard places and not getting too defeated and not letting themselves get out of the games completely. And I just, kudos to them because as we all know, playing women's basketball tournaments, especially in the first rounds, you're playing at, your opponent's home if you are not the higher seed. So that's very, very high octane environment last night.
Oh, absolutely. But this team is a team that they have thrived in the underdog role in tournaments over the past 2 years. Like when you don't expect anything from Miami women's basketball, that's when you can expect the most. Yeah. That's when you say to yourself, all right, they've done a good job, but this just ain't their year. Destiny Harden's going to come through and say, it ain't what now? It ain't what? Those Cavinder twins are going to come through and say, hey, we didn't get these NIL deals just because we're pretty and we're here. We can ball a little bit too. And so, this is, again, a really good moment. I told you, Indiana likes to make the game slow, nasty, and mucky. But didn't I also tell you they got that Virginia in them? And now look.
They're going to be figuring out what to do for spring break for sure. Let's talk about some messy, a little testy, if you will, a little spice happening throughout some of the women's tournament. Louisville and Texas. It was never a game. Louisville has shown and is proving that they're the Louisville of old, figuring out ways to win thanks to the help of their leader, Hailey Van Lith, who had a smooth 20 points. Okay. But it was the post-game conversation, kerfuffle, if you will, that had everyone in a tizzy. Shout out to my girl, Alexis Cubitt, who loves to report on the Louisville football and basketball teams. She said that Hailey pretty much was like, I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to say what it was. I'm going to take the high road, all the things. And I'm like, nah, sis, let's spill the tea. From what I can read a mouse, it said the girl, I think her name is Sonya Moore. I'm just going to go ahead and say her name is Sonya. Don't know her last name. So they were going to have a little conversation, right, kitten? Mm-hmm. And it looked like she said, so I'm a B word. I'm a B word. And Hailey was a little confused because she held her up, in the high five line. But it also said, oh, so I'm P word. And I was like, I couldn't quite tell, what was said. But it looked like it was like, oh, so now you got something to say it to right here to my face. So I don't know what was said, but it didn't look nice.
I don't care about none of that. If y'all ain't gonna put hands on each other, keep it pushing. If y'all,
Hailey can't put hands on her. She just made it to Sweet 16. She can't afford that.
Well, I'm saying from the Texas player who lost or whatever it is, I really don't care for all the dramatics and all the timeline tough guy activity. Mm-hmm. If you're not gonna get to it, if you're not gonna get active, let it go.
Keep it cute. Keep on the playground.
Whatever was said, let it go. Right?
Sonya Morris. Sonya Morris. There it is. Not Moore. Morris. I had to get it right. It was gonna bother me. Again, but keep it cute. Keep it on the playgrounds. That's what you're saying.
Whatever was said, let it go. Now, if you feel like what was said was that much of a violation, if it was that egregious, go handle your business. Go do what you're gonna do. But either way, I'm just not one.
You're not with the post-game shenanigans?
I'm not with any chit-chat in like 90% of situations. Either you let it go or you handle it. And I mean handle it. Key part of handle is hand. Use your hands. I'm sure they work. But
there's too much to lose when you lay hands, Kendon, especially when the girl got 2 points off the bench. She wanted to talk junk. Like, what is you doing? What are we doing? And
that's why I said 90% of the time you just walk away. Because like that again, I don't really see the point. And it distracted from an amazing game that Louisville played. It distracted from the fact that this Louisville team that we're seeing is the Louisville team that we thought we would see all year. Right. This is a Louisville team that, and now going up against an Ole Miss team that while they did have an amazing upset of Stanford, it's a Louisville team that is very beatable, that Louisville is playing for the opportunity to land themselves in the Elite Eight. This is, what more could you want? What more could you truly want? Especially in this type of game where, like you said, it was never close.
Yeah.
It was after that first quarter, the first quarter was back and forth. All of that was, 1 for 1. All right. Punch, counter punch, punch, counter punch. And then that second quarter, Louisville said, wait a minute, we're the better team here.
Yeah.
I don't know what they thought this was, but they don't play like this in the Big 12. This ain't go back to your crop dusting and all that, because we're different over here. And they surely did. They surely showed it.
I think the biggest difference maker was Morgan Jones, 10 points off the bench. I mean, there was a lot of help from the bench last night. Mm-hmm. Hailey Van Lith clearly with her 21 points. But, overall, they played a full team game, which they were finding and highlighting the people in their programs, abilities and capabilities. And so it leads with Hailey, and then everything else falls to place. So it was nice for them to get the win. It sucks that the moment got taken away from the post-game shenanigans, but I still think that Louisville is in a great position. 4 teams are making it to the Sweet 16. We'll talk about the 2 who did it from last night in just a second, but the tournament is heating up. I'm trying to tell you, if you do not enjoy basketball, you are nuts. Even if you do, like, listen, you're having a grand old time. Let's talk about it. It's the perfect time to download FanDuel because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download FanDuel Sportsbook app. Is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scorers and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. No sweat first bet, $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Rocking and rolling with Kenton Gibbs. We're talking through the Sweet 16. So you got Notre Dame, you got Louisville, you got Miami, and you got Virginia Tech. We're looking good. We thought one more might make it, but four ain't bad. I'm going to take 4 in the Sweet 16 because that's literally 25. Is that 25%?
Yes, that's exactly 25%.
Come on, Candace. You are pretty and you can do basic math. Okay, period. So let's talk about the two Adam Monday's group who didn't make it. Triangle is looking kind of crazy right now. Let's just go ahead and say it. Triangle basketball is looking kind of crazy this year. Duke and Colorado. You're playing at home. You got everything before you. You've got a leader in Celeste Taylor. Stat of the year. You know what I'm saying? First NCAA woman to ever, can we say ever get a stat line of 8 points, 10 assists, 8 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 10 steals. Ever. No one's ever done that in NCAA tournament history. And then you still hold the L. You held them to make the tie game, but then we couldn't go into overtime. But we couldn't get it in overtime. Colorado just kept punching them at the mouth. They never let them get themselves out of it. Even when Duke went up, they put themselves back in. It was just Colorado was the better team that night. I don't know if they were the better team total, but they were the better team that night.
I mean, but that's what March Madness is. That's really and truly what March Madness is. You know, it isn't about who's been a better team all year. It's about literally getting hot at the right time, which, I mean, we can point to Louisville and say, this is not the Louisville team that we've seen all year. This is not. But they showed up when it mattered most. And in terms of this Duke team, you're never going to win when between Celeste Taylor, when between Richardson, when between Cheyenne Day Wilson, you're looking at, I believe they combined to shoot for let's see here, 8 of 35. 8 of 35.
Mixed for a long night.
2 of 14 from deep. You're never going to win when that trio struggles. I mean, that's just not going to happen. That's just And so, yes, for all the great things that Celeste Taylor did in terms of rebounding, defending, all that good stuff, amazing. Nobody's selling that short. Nobody's discrediting that. But the reality is, when your 3 main scorers combine to shoot as poorly as they did, you can count your lucky stars to even be going to overtime, but you're not going to pull that game out. That's just, every day and twice on Sunday, 8 of 35 out of your best is going to get you an L.
Kennedy Brown being scoreless and being your center is tough. That's just, not getting fed in the paint, whatever, what have you. I think Reagan Richardson and Shyday Wilson, excuse me, let me make sure I get her name right. Cheyenne Day Wilson. It was, to me, an opportunity for her to maybe get going a little bit more and facilitate better. I think when she was in the game, it was easier to see. But I understand Reagan's positioning. I understand what she means to the team and all the things. But I think Coach should have made the switch personally in terms of who was facilitating for the units.
I mean, Kennedy Brown hasn't been a great scorer all year for this team. That's just not been.
But zero. Don't be a great scorer, but you get more than 0.
But I'm saying, at the end of the day, when I'm in tournament time, I'm not looking at my players that are averaging 5 to 6 points a game and saying, hey, you need to have your one shining moment. I'm looking at my stars and saying, hey, it's time. It's time. Y'all, if we don't know which way to go, y'all need to make it easy and say, follow me. Follow me and I'll get you to the promised land.
But 0, Kenton?
Again, I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying, hey, that's what you want. You want your center to be scoreless. You want your 4th and 5th options to be scoreless. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
What I am saying is, during tournament time, I'm looking at my stars. I'm looking at the players that I'm gonna trust with the ball the most, and I'm gonna say, y'all need to make it easy for the rest of the team. Y'all need to let them know, follow me, and I'll get you to wherever you want to go. And again, Celeste Taylor did that to some regard, but also her shot selection was tough, to say the least.
My girl needed to stop shooting threes. Yeah. I don't know who told her. Like once two don't go in, I might need to be a layup lady tonight. You know what I'm saying? Like I just need to be a jumper Judy. Like I don't need to be trying to shoot threes when that's not my shot tonight, and that's okay. But you also look at Cheyenne, 0 for 4 from 3. You look at Reagan, 2 for 5 from 3. Yeah. You look at Balogan, 2 for 5 from 3. Like the 3 was not going y'all way, but you also couldn't feed on the inside to get Kennedy going. So that's tough. That's tough.
I mean, yeah, this was at the end of the day, Colorado played some extremely tough defense. Yeah. Jalen Sherrod was all over the place. You know, you got to give her credit because one of the smallest players on the court showed up, showed out, did the thing for Colorado. You at the end of the day, you tip your cap, and sometimes you just got to say, hey, this team, they got us. On this night, they were better than us. And that front court that they have, that combination of Vonleh and Miller, they went to work. That was the biggest difference. Their front court put up 29 points, and Miller played 44 minutes, for Christ's sake. Quay Miller, she deserves to get her love because, I mean, it was a great season. It was a great season by this team. It was a great season. Again, they'll be back. Coach Lawson will be back. They'll be back.
But it's tough because they have so much talent and it just hasn't materialized the way in which I feel like they should be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, first of all, and I don't want to call nobody out here.
Don't call nobody out, but go ahead.
But I mean, for this to be a March Madness game, for this to be your only basketball game that was playing, the crazies were not crazy.
The crazies were not crazy. We can call them out. Yeah, I thought you were talking about players. Yeah, the crazy.
No, I'm not calling the players out.
It was very dry in Cameron.
I was looking around like, you can't. This team had the opportunity and had all the makings of a team that could make a deep run, and you know who knows what could happen. All you got to do is get there, and it just was not.
It was giving wine and cheese. It was giving wine and cheese.
Yeah, the energy wasn't in that building. It wasn't there, and it's very surprising given what we know about Cameron Indoor. It's very surprising. So you know that was a little disappointing, but at the end of the day, Carol Lawson and his team will be back. I think that this is what a time for ACC women's basketball. We talked about how great they were in the regular season, and even in the postseason now, we're seeing that, you know, we were right. This is a really, really good conference. So, you know, that's all I got to say there.
100%. Last game I want to touch on here. Let's talk about North Carolina and Ohio State. As we get into all of this NCAA tournament play, make sure you check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast. They have all the things looking around the nation, talking about your top teams as they prepare for the Sweet 16 on that side for the men's and women's this weekend, and who will make it to the Elite Eight. It's all good if you just, keep pushing forward. So excited to see how that turns out. Now, North Carolina, Ohio State, another nail-biting performance, another leave you on your seat. I was in the nail salon about to have a heart attack. Couldn't cuss. They didn't really understand, why I was so intense, but I was with my AirPods, jolting and doing all the things because North Carolina was, for all intents and purposes during that fourth quarter. I mean, third quarter, they were down by 5. Going into fourth quarter, down by 5. Lead got as big as 12 in the fourth quarter. Deja Kelly rolled her ankle. They were able to bounce back. And yet and still, 9 seconds just proved to be too much time on the clock for Lacey Sheldon to get back down, get a nice little floater, I'll call it, and ultimately win the game for the Buckeyes.
Oh, I am so sad to see.
I hate you.
Courtney Banghart losing makes me so sad. I have shed many a tear for Courtney Banghart because
go away.
Her humility and kindness have always been the trademarks of this team. And no, but seriously, this was a game in which, again, ACC women's basketball, they won't go away. They just all of these teams simply will not go away. You think you've got them buried. You think you've got them dead. You think, all right, this team is cooked, and they just keep fighting back. Deja Kelly was out there with 1.5 ankles and still fighting and doing the best that she could.
Pause before you. She had 1.5 ankles and probably should have sat her tail down. Just like Armando, when you have 1.5 ankles, you probably need to sit your tail down.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you.
So in football, you always joke about how people like get shot up in the back and they do what they got to do. I don't feel like that happens in college basketball. Not in the same way.
I mean, I don't know what does or doesn't go down in basketball to that degree in terms of injuries and whatnot. I really and truly don't know. But what I will say is this. Sometimes if you're not better than your replacement, you're being a net negative. You're being a net negative. And
come on.
There are times where you may be the player, but you've got to objectively say to yourself, this game is too big for me to say I need to go win it when, some of these freshmen, some of these backups that were coming in, were doing the thing. You know what I mean? Between Caleb McPherson, between Paris, they were playing very good ball off the bench. And so I kind of understand why you're saying that, hey, she probably should have sat down there. But with that being said, again, what are you going to do, right? Like,
what are you going to do? I want the coaches at Carolina to have some I need them to get bigger brass ones, because to me, if your team is able to get back in the game and even take the lead, and you decide for yourself, I need to put the girl who's hobbling in, like you're 4.5 players. You're not at full strength. And you have good guards on that bench.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, I'm not saying that as a coach, you're faced with a decision.
Right.
Do you play with that 4.5, but that half is your best player? Or do you, risk losing and have people asking, why wasn't Deja in the game?
Because she got a broke ankle. The hell you mean?
Well, yeah, but even with the ankle situation, she was still. I believe
she hit the game time jumper. I'm not taking away from the girl. She had 22 points. She is a leader. But I also feel like when she was out, they played more team ball. I feel like Kennedy Todd Williams stepped up in a big way. Alyssa Usby started making her layups. It felt a little better. The energy was different. I also think just by the end of the game, not having Eva Hodgson in was the Achilles heel. No pun intended. But knowing that she could shoot a 3 if she had needed to, knowing that she has been their best shooter, arguably with Deja and Alyssa all season, it was tough not having her in. I know she probably is sick to stomach because she knows she could have been in there and scored some points for them.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, this was a great game. There were a lot of really good games here. Somebody has to lose,
Somebody got to lose.
We're always very sad when it is our brothers and sisters in Chapel Hill who have to lose. It's a shame, really. It's a sin and a shame.
Are you done? But what's tough, really, seriously, if you look at the triangle, we have no schools in the Sweet 16 on the men or women's side. And, to be this hoop state of sorts, it's a little difficult, because I think that the way our teams have gone out, I think Duke, they were just having an off day. But everybody else, it was a tough showing.
I mean, when I look at all of the teams, all of the North Carolina teams and how they, were disposed of, all of the ACC teams out of North Carolina and how they were disposed of in the tournament, I'm honestly looking up and saying, hey, in the words of Frank Sinatra, that's life. Like I mean, NC State saw a Creighton team that plays such great defense that they can land on your ankle while you're shooting, and somehow
you're gonna let that go today. You're gonna let that go today.
Again.
You're gonna let that go today.
Again, a player tore his ankle up, landed in somebody else's shooting space, and the rest was just like, everything looks good here. That checks out. I mean, on the women's side, you've got a team that wasn't very interested in winning in terms of NC State women's basketball. having their final 4 possessions be turnover, no shot because they ran out of time. You go to the Duke teams. Like you said, Duke in their tournament loss, Duke got hot as fish grease at the end of the season, but that Duke team that we saw at the end of the season isn't who, I mean, you are who you were when you got here. The Duke women's team, to say that they were cold as ice is an understatement. I mean, I know that if the Colorado Buffs cheerleaders
were the basketballs all right? Were they okay? Did
exactly. Somebody would have hit the brrr, it's cold in here cheer with every time one of their big 3 put up a shot.
Yeah.
And when you look at UNC on the women's side, the men's side didn't exactly get into the dance. So
get it out.
But the women's side, I mean, you ran up against a great team. You had some injury problems. You know, it's life. It shakes out like that sometimes where it's like,
so we're chalking up Hoop State to its life. It's just that's just them's the breaks.
Yeah, it does. To me, it really, I think it's unrealistic to say like, you know, there should be a North Carolina team in the Sweet 16 every single year. It's just not realistic. It's just not, you know.
I hear you. But as someone who's lived and grown up in the Hoop State, it's hard to even imagine, even if it's Duke, even if it's NC State, you know, it's hard to imagine not any of them being, you know, moving on for men and women's side.
Well, I mean, one of those programs was the flag bearer, making sure that we made the Sweet 16 for the last, I don't know, 4 years or so. But anywho,
you're talking about NC State women?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's neither here nor there. I mean, hey, you know, I love Raider Perez and Diamond Johnson, but NC State has a point guard coming in that's taller than 5'9" next year. So, yeah, the rest of the ACC should be on notice. They should be.
Should they? Because, okay, anyway.
The number 9 player in the nation is coming, and everybody's just like,
I mean, Sanaya Rivers is good too, but here we are. So, anyway, I say all that to say, I ultimately think that, you know, if we look at the Blue Bloods changing of the guards, it's new energy. I love that for Miami, right? We thought Miami was going to be the team that comes in and be the football program that takes over. Hold up. Who knew it was going to be the basketball programs doing it, right? Who knew that the ACC was going to be holding on to their one shining moment in Miami men's basketball and upset activity from Miami women. And now from Notre Dame, Louisville, and Virginia Tech, we have a lot more to root for on the women's side, but you know, it's always good to see on my end. Kenton, final thoughts here before we get out.
Again, this, you know, to make up 1/4 of the Sweet 16, that's a huge deal. That's a very big deal. And I don't think that should be understated. I don't think that anybody should look at that and say like, oh, well, this is what they were supposed to do. Because I mean, objectively, it's not. Like a majority of our teams who are in at this point have beaten teams that were seeded higher than them. And, you know, everybody expects the women's tournament to be chalky, and it wasn't. It wasn't, right? If it was chalky, Louisville is gone. If everything goes perfectly good and everything is chalky, then we see less teams than we have currently in the Sweet 16. Miami is gone. They don't beat Indiana, but our teams find a way. And I don't believe that any other conference has more teams than us in the Sweet 16. So, you know, again, say what you want, but you look at the SEC, they've got 4 teams in. You look at the Big Ten, you can't count UCLA yet because they're still in the Pac-12 or whatever. Yeah, Pac-12. So you're looking at the Big Ten having, I want to say 1, 2, 3 teams in there. We're doing what we need to do as a conference. Doing what we need to do as a conference. They're holding it down, doing what they need to do. I love to see it.
POP, hold us down. All right, guys, come back tomorrow. We'll have talks through previewing the Sweet 16 matchups and getting ready for what will be an exciting weekend for college hoops. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, until next time.